Welcome to this session on ArcGIS Online. We're going to talk about using map styles to discover and define your web map's purpose. It's going to be fast-paced. We're going to be rapid-fire, hopefully showing you how to do this as we go along. We're never going to perfect a single map while we're here, but just show you kind of the, this gets you 80% there, and then you perfect it from there. I'm Jim Harries. I'm a geographer at Esri for something like 24 years. I came to GIS from a journalism background originally. I was attracted to it because of the beautiful maps I saw were being made with it. This was at a time before the 486 or Pentium computers existed. So I was always interested. I just thought, man, if they're making maps with computers and the computers are getting more powerful and more people are getting computers, I think I'm going to have good employment opportunities somewhere in there helping people make maps. And turns out I was correct on that. I'm joined by someone who enables all that to happen, Mr. Jeremy Bartley.
Yep. Jim is, the other day, we met Jack in the cafe, and Jack referred to Jim, he was talking to somebody else, as an exceptional cartographer.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? He didn't say exceptionally bad or exceptionally good.
It's very Jackism, just to put you out there, what you think.
No, I'm also background in geography, and I've been working at Esri for almost 13 years now, and work on ArcGIS Online team and JavaScript API, and the thing I like to do is make maps.
And Jeremy gets it. He's empathetic to you, your staff. When they're making maps in online, he and his team, they get it. Online, whether you like it or not, is about speed. It's about how quickly can we get things done. Get access to data is part of that. The reason we were interested in this topic and commit a fair chunk of our lives to making this stuff work is we like to go fast too. So anything that slows us down kind of gets our attention when we're trying to make a map and we make one change in the classification and all the labels in our classifications go away. That catches our attention. Right? Because now I have to redo that. And so things like that just through a normal workflow of using all the many capabilities of the platform, when there's friction encountered, that'll get our attention. When there's friction encountered along the way to making a great map, that really gets our attention because the great map is what we're all in it for. We're in it for a map that, when I say great, I mean it works. It does the job, whether it's a travel map that shows you how to drive your car across country, or it's a map of a statistical things, one of the things, any of the things flashing on the screen right now. You want it to communicate with the right people the right way. You want to move their thought process forward, right? So it's not about clicks or views or how many millions of views you get. It's about how many people did you move forward in that discussion. And let's go ahead. We thought
fun fact, Jim. How many maps do you think there are in ArcGIS Online?
I'm going to guess millions, but I know you want something more specific.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say 20 million.
Oh, well, not quite. That's a good number, but 6.4 million maps in ArcGIS Online, which is actually quite a bit. It's about 10,000 maps a day. 10,000 maps a day. And our goal is to make those maps even better. We want you to be successful making them the best map possible. And Jim and his team, the Living Atlas, they make tons of maps. It's just the amount of maps that his team creates is just outstanding. And you can see them all over the place. Probably saw them in the plenary, all those cool maps that they were showing. I think almost all of those came from Jim and his team. And it's not like...
it's an exaggeration, but I'll take it, sure.
Yeah. A good chunk.
I know which ones.
Yes. But it's very cool, and it's not like that's all they do. They do lots of different things, but they're able to make so many cool maps so quickly and really focus people on the interesting part of it. And that's really kind of like the surprising thing I've noticed in ArcGIS Online over the years, that the content that's coming out of the Living Atlas team is just blown up. I mean, there's so many different beautiful maps and understanding. Oh, Jim, we were going to go faster this time, but we're now wasting time talking. I'm sorry.
No. It's good to have context because the whole reason we want to talk about map styles, the whole reason this exists. Look, we could build a bunch of software and put all the different capabilities tucked away in little corners, different dialog boxes, and left click and right click, and go over here and go over there. That's fine. We have to do that, right? Esri has to build all the raw capabilities. But we're using map styles to kind of percolate up. If you just want a map that looks like what's on my screen right now, wouldn't it be nice if that were just a couple clicks away? And so that's what we started work on. Eventually got named Smart Mapping as sort of a capability. There's not a tool called Smart Mapping Tool. It's just sort of a philosophy about how to set maps up so they're going to be easy to make and visually stunning. We want you to get there quickly or put you on the path of success. I think our marketing page, or at least one of the marketing page, says it's about automatic cartography. I'm like, no. It is definitely not about automatic anything. We get you started, and at that point, you're further down the road than you would be with any other software, and now you can focus on adding your knowledge into the map you're trying to make.
We're still working with the marketing team.
Yeah, always. And
it's a long haul.
And Smart Mapping analyzes your data, suggests various ways to represent it through these map styles. And because it's responsive, and you get immediate feedback, like you click, you see something, you can start to get on the hunt. You get on the sniff, like a hound dog trying to find the scent. I'm going to go find the thing I need to find and find that message in the map. So examples like this are pretty typical. You've got weather, you've got car accidents in the top right corner with a heat map, or maybe we want to aggregate them. On the lower left, we're showing a map of 2 dimensions of data, smokers and drinkers. And on the lower right, we're showing slope from a GPS, right? Anybody like hiking? Who likes uphill hiking? Yeah, there's always 2. Yeah, there's always a couple. Yeah, I'm the flat and downhill. Okay, so we're gonna map a number of things. Yeah, in journalism, they had who, what, when, where, why, how much, and my editor used to always say, hey, don't forget who cares. Because if he doesn't care by the end of the time he or she reads the article, it doesn't matter what other questions you've answered. So we're going to show you map styles for all these questions, starting out with where. And we're going to hit escape, because PowerPoint requires me to do that. And then we alt tab over, and here we go. So here's a map of Sonic restaurants throughout the United States. Any fans? Yeah, it's okay to admit it. We're big fans too. So here's a heat map. Kind of falls apart at this scale, doesn't it? I wouldn't do that. Don't take a picture of that. How do we make this map of Sonic, of where all the Sonic restaurants are? Obviously, we get a spreadsheet or some kind of layer together, and when it first comes in, it looks like this. This is going to be like a cooking show where I show you the final product, and then I show you some ingredients. So here we go. We go into this change style. Right? This is a feature layer at this point, so I've got maximum flexibility. And the first question Smart Mapping's interface, or ArcGIS Online's interface, asks you is, hey, what attribute do you want to show? That's why you're here, right? You want to map an attribute. Well, not always. Sometimes you just want to show the location. So within location only, just showing location. Step 2, pick a style. Well, I could click this and see if I like that style, or I can go back to this. Click, go back. Do I like a heat map? Maybe. It seems to me like it's just making a big glowy thing around my symbol at this scale. Maybe it'll be useful at other scales. So what I would do is go in here and change my symbol. We have a wide variety of symbols available, but we know you. You're always going to say, I want one more. So what we try to do is put images out there that you can use. So for example, if I go out to my desktop over here, I've got this Sonic image right here. And what I can do is, in a new tab, sorry, we'll go over here, we're organization, we're in Giuseppe. All right, so if I go to my organization, and go to my content, you can upload any image you want. You just go to this add item from my computer, and we'll go find that little Sonic logo right here and bring it in. And it's going to tell me you already have one, which I ought to remember. So what we'll do is we'll find that guy that I've already got. And here's my image. After you upload it, this is what it looks like. It's got an item page. I like to put a tag on mine that says logo or icon so that they're easy to search for. And I'm going to grab its location, its URL. All right, there it is. I'm just going to copy it from here. That's the right way to copy it. And then I can go back to my map and very quickly drop that URL in. Now, it could be a URL to anything you've got hosted on your servers. This is just what was relatively convenient for me. So then from there, I'm going to size it. This size, it's 34 points. That seems to be what it suggested. I could double the size. We'll see how that looks. All right, and you just kind of go from there. Quick, clean, easy. Just upload it. That item is available in ArcGIS Online for you to use on many maps. I did a similar thing here where I used this pike symbol. And in this case, I commissioned the work. If you know anybody who knows how to use Adobe Photoshop, make them your new best friend, because they will make you symbols that are just awesome, and you can use them. This one, I told my friend Andy what I wanted. I wanted something that looked like kind of like a pike or a spear, because we're showing all these monuments in Ireland, and often they're surrounded by gates or other things. I don't know, it was just a discussion. So in the same way, we brought that one into the map the exact same way. In the interest of time, I'm gonna move on to our next example, which, we'll go over to PowerPoint, and we will persuade PowerPoint to show our next example. So a lot of times we talk about mapping what? When you have a set of data, you've got the location of things, you have attributes. And those attributes can be broken down any number of ways, but it was suggested by Sud Menon, our head engineer, lead engineer, that think of your attribute data as having dimensions and measures. So let's talk about dimensions. Common dimensions are things like type, name, class, district, territory, zone, route, level, and category. And the reason that's relevant is you can use these things pretty easily. I'll go to Open Data as an example. I searched up fire hydrants. I don't know, I was interested in fire hydrants. And when I hit Create Web Map on this layer, it's going to look through all the attributes, right? So back here on the layer, it reports, hey, here's all the attributes I have. And although they don't appear to have put aliases on these attributes, their field names look pretty good, like operational area. I think I can understand what's here. Now by default, it's zoomed to that extent, but it seems like all the action is up in this area of Asheville. So I see their default symbology, and that's okay. I'm just kind of curious, what else do they have? Do they have condition? You got a field called condition. I'd like to know the condition of my, something's up. And so I can quickly say, well, treat that field like it's a text field. And it turns out the condition of all these things is other. And it seems like condition is not a useful field. I don't need to pursue this any further, do I? Like, I don't even need to open the attribute table. Unless somebody said, oh, the condition field, that's the one you want to use. It's right here, screenshot, email, go on to the next task. So instead, I'm going to look around a little bit into district. That might be populated. Oh yeah, it is. We got a district called S, E, N, W, and N-E. I suspect this is about directions. So I can quickly see what's up with that. Maybe I'm interested in elevation. By color. Do you get a sense where the higher elevation hydrants are? So I don't know anything about hydrants and water pressure, but I do know this, the stuff getting the water to the higher elevation maybe requires more energy or work that I know nothing about. But at least I can quickly kind of cycle through these examples as I'm trying to explore where these things are and what they are. So from a what perspective, we're probably looking at text fields, but other capabilities are just a click away. Good, good, good. Okay, so let's jump back in here real quick. I think we go on to look at another type of what relationship. Sometimes there are relationships between two attributes, right? And I know as GIS professionals, perhaps we all start out mapping one attribute at a time. Let's map income. Let's map percent smokers. Then we'll make another map of percent drinkers. What if you didn't have to work that way? What if you could do two things? I think my next example is here. This is the county health rankings. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation puts this out every year. This example is from 2018. And if I make a copy of this layer, how many people know about copy layer? Yeah, all right. Isn't it cool? You just make, thanks for copy layer, Jeremy. Pass that on to the team. We love copy layer. If I reset this to kind of how it comes in at the start, show location only. This is my map. Ready? Yes. Okay, blank slate. We're ready to go. So step one, I'm going to go find a subject I'm interested in. And in this case, it is under percent.
A lot of attributes in that file.
Look at all those attributes and every one of them with an alias. Why is an alias good? Because it means they don't call me asking me, what does this field name mean? Or they don't have to look up, go find some PDF buried on your website that describes what this obscure field name means. When you alias things, you improve the chances that people can quickly find percent excessive drinking. Now that thing has a field name, but I'm never going to show that field name to anybody I present this map to. I want to have aliases. Please alias your data. Anything going out on open data or going out to the public, take a moment. If you take 5 minutes to alias your data and 50,000 people later use your data, you saved 50,000 people 5 minutes. They don't have to alias it for you. It's truly a gift. And the thing I notice is the maps I make where I alias my source data or alias the layer or alias the web map, they get used by people I don't even know exist. They just see what it is and they attempt to use it and they're happy with it. So there is a benefit back to me as well. So in this case,
Jim.
Yep.
Fun fact.
Yep.
Can you switch over to mine?
I can. I'm just going to pause right there.
Yeah. Number 3.
Number 3, you got it.
Just want to make sure everybody knows that this is there. This was released last March, past March.
Yeah, this is good.
In addition to alias, there's also a new description property. So you can give up to 500 characters of a good description. Now, why is this important? I'm not going to type. It's important because without this, what you would tend to see is that people who wanted to be good citizens would jam like 3-sentence long aliases in, and they become really hard to use, and it's not enough. An alias gets used on the map, and the description is not what you want on the map. You want the alias on the legend, not the description. So this is new. If you're creating data for other people to use, fill it out. The map viewer is the one that's going to take advantage of it now, but the other apps within Esri in the next year should take advantage of it. And when users are in doing their smart mapping or looking at the table, they'll see that description and be able to glean even more information from the data.
Who knew that aliases and field names and extra descriptions had so much to do with mapping quality? But it does, and it helps with the spread of your work. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to add that second attribute because we're trying to map what the relationship is between percent drinking, excessive drinking, and percent smoking. We're just curious if these two have any kind of relationship. And we can immediately see smart mapping is suggesting a style called color and size. Okay, well that's kind of interesting. Maybe not what I want. I've heard about this predominance category style. I want to try this map style out. Oh, I get instant feedback. You see any signal in this map? Right away, right? There seems to be a relationship between the two things that I can actually go in and start to play with. Now the other styles are predominance category and size, where now we incorporate the total number of people into the map. This is why we don't call it automatic cartography. We're not that smart to figure out how to make this, perfect at this scale for your subject with the colors that make sense for the topic. That'll never happen, right? We always need you. We need you intervening with your knowledge, your sensitivity to the use of color. In different cultures, red means different things, right? So you want to be thoughtful about that. So along the way...
The other thing, Jim, I'll just add to that is that you can just keep flipping through your styles. is that we want to make it quick to try out these things. You know, each time Jim is doing this, it's only taking him like 5 seconds to get that new map to see if there is any like signal in that style that you might want to then pursue further. And that's something that we're taking to heart for the new map viewer as well, to remove even the smallest possible disruption in interacting. And by the end of this session, we'll show you a preview of the new map viewer. Just want to give plugs.
That's good.
Stayed.
And that's exactly it. I'm most excited when you choose 2 attributes. You've got all these different styles to try. And then once you get in, you can start to perfect it. You can see the histogram of the data. You can try out different classification techniques, natural breaks, or equal interval.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone notice Utah?
Yeah.
No matter how I classify Utah, it still jumps out, right? And that's what we enjoy most about these, in bringing these map styles to bear. How long would it take you to do in other mapping software you've used before? It would take a while. So therefore you would pause, and when the boss or the customer comes and says, I need a map, we need to talk about smoking and drinking across the country. That's what we need to do. Did they specify a map? No. They're not going to specify a map. Most of the people I report to on projects, they don't tell me what map to make. They tell me what they're interested in, or I steer the conversation towards, what are you interested in? What do you wish you knew? What do you wish this map would show? I will deliberately show people a map that isn't quite as good as I want it to be, because I want them to be a little bit frustrated with it, so that they tell me why they're frustrated with it. And then I could move on from there.
Just to spend just a second on that that relationship style, that just took 5 seconds. If you do that without ArcGIS Online, it's going to take you about 4 or 5 hours, because you got to create columns, you got to calculate data for the columns, you got to combine them together, you got to come up with a scheme for mapping the unique combinations between the two to a legend scheme. Then you've got to manually create your legend. So these are some of the things that we put in within the last year to really make it very fast to explore.
And we like that. Now back to the simple example. Here's a map we did for state CIOs were surveyed. What are your top issues in 2017? And this is the final product that the customer asked us to make. We just want a strong visualization of what is the top priority of every state CIO in the country. To get there, we wanted to make it pretty quick and easy. Go to change style, go find the field where they told me what their priority 1 is. We immediately get a map. And then we can start to work with the color palette to see, do I want something a little brighter? Do I want something a little more subdued? Etc. It's just trial and error. And of course, you can work within any of these to put some of the typical color picker colors in, or you can drop a hex value in, right? That's nice, that's quick. This map, I think I did this map in about 15 minutes during the meeting while they were all talking. And then all of a sudden I said, is this kind of, I didn't show them this one, I showed them this one. And I said, is this kind of what you're talking about? And all of a sudden I was their hero. And I'm like, thanks, Jeremy. Because I'm not the hero, I'm just using the software. And that's what gets me excited about how we have a whole new way to engage with our leadership and our customers. We can be fast-paced and just get them leaning our way about how to communicate with maps. And that's what is perhaps most exciting for me. Okay. Predominance, let's show a predominance style. I think I've got 2 of them. This is the predominant low income group across the country. These are cities across the country. And in the data, when you hear the word predominance, what I want you to remember from our conversation today, when you see data like this, let me blow it up a little bit for those in the back of the room. When you see column after column after column, and they're all the same general topic, and they all have the same unit, you might have a predominance map. And the way you can tell for sure is to go ahead and build it. So I'm going to copy this layer. And predominant low-income groups. So we went from, we're just interested in those 4 income groups below $50,000. So I'll set the cake back to batter mode. All right, so we go back here and pick one attribute, just where are all the households with income less than 15,000, and I want to do it by size. And that might be a map. And then you can see I could make a second map of the next category and a third map of the next category, and then I could expect somebody to look at 4 different maps, scan them back and forth, and they'll never see a pattern. They just won't. So the other approach is to kind of pick, okay, if I choose the less than 15, and then the 15 to 25,000, and then I'll pick the, let's see, 25,000 to 35. Let's just pause there. Now I've got 3 attributes. Right now it's trying to draw the city boundary, which doesn't show at this scale, so we switch to predominant category and size. And I'm already starting to get a little bit of signal in the map. The size is suffering a little bit. Those larger cities can act like outliers in your data, so I'm going to kind of drop this down. And notice how the cities are getting, certain cities are getting bigger on the map. What this is saying is at a certain size, let's say 500,000, if you have 500,000 people total in your city, I'm going to size you with a 50-point symbol. We go up to 120. Ooh, too far. If you're going to fail, fail fast. So what I always suggest people do is go ahead and maximize that and then drag this thing back up to your max value. There it goes. And now I see New York very clearly because it's the max quantity, right? It's the one of the largest cities in this with this data. And then everybody else is kind of standing out that way, all right? And then you can, again, go in and work on the color to draw out, well, what's the story I want it to, how do I want this to pop? In this case, this is when you just limit it to these 3 income categories, it's kind of shocking the number of cities where the predominant group of people are in the very lowest income category. That's interesting, right? It only took a couple of minutes for us to feel that out. I like that. Same way with crime. Here's a map of crime index. It's data available from Esri. If you take the blank version and go pick assault, an index of burglary, these are on the same scale, where an index value of 100 means you have the same rate of assault as the nation as a whole, right? So there's a certain amount of assaults that occur across the entire United States. When you kind of prorate that by population, you get and use that value as your benchmark index. So a number of 100 means something. Now right now the map isn't really showing that. So, and we're not making that kind of map. We're trying to show some indications of assault, burglary, and let's do robbery together. So these 3 things taken together, you might do a polygon fill approach because you want to see the lay of the land. You might show the size, where if you've got high indexes on all 3, your size is going to be bigger. And then you can kind of work with the size, as I showed before, to kind of play around with, okay, how much emphasis do I want to put on these things? And that's where we ended up in with this map. In this case, I'll show you the legend. Apologies for the rough nature of the topic, but you've got murder, rape, robbery, assault, burglary, index, motor vehicle theft, and larceny. And I grew up in St. Louis. This was definitely the mental map that I was given as a kid. As soon as I got my driver's license, I was basically told, if you cross that river, you will hear from me about it when you get back. So Dad was pretty stern about that. I went to high school right here. So it was an interesting way to visualize this. It's a little different, right? You're not used to that. We're all kind of used to polygon choropleth fill. We fill all the polygons up with color. And sorry, rural polygons, you get lots of pixels. And you urban polygons, I'm sorry, you're tiny. you don't get as many pixels of color. Deal with it. This is how you deal with it. You use the actual counts of things. Hey, Jeremy, should we talk about time?
I think it's time.
Oof. Dad joke. Another dimension of data is when. How many of you deal with time in any way in your data sets? Oh, good. So this will be relevant for you. I put this link to show time in your maps as a reminder to myself to tell you. We write a blog about all these map styles. Every time we have a new map style come out in ArcGIS Online, we always write at least one blog to kind of talk about it.
How many people knew that you could map based on a date field in online? Okay, all right.
All right, good. So this runs you through several examples of how to show age or highlight a specific point in time, how to show time and magnitude. So this is, I believe, refugee deaths, people trying to cross the oceans to get to new areas. Emphasize old using transparency. Anybody guess what this is? A map of? It's Salt Lake City, if that's a hint. This is the age of sewer lines. The brighter or more dark, let's say it this way, the darker the blue, the older the pipe. It's kind of concerning that the oldest pipe is very old. The biggest pipe is also one of the oldest ones. So we do these things. I'll show a quick example using Parcels. I don't know how many of you deal with Parcels data. This is a map showing in, you can see in the legend, the age in years from a sale date to the then current date in 2016. Last time I guess I touched this. I like the fact that I can jump back into this style. So I chose a field called sale date. It recognized, oh, there's a date field. We have a whole bunch of map styles available. We could do age and color, or we could do a continuous timeline of when the sale date occurred. We could do it as using size instead if that was thought to be a good pattern. Again, I can rule this out right away. This one maybe, I don't know, maybe using age size. Let's go back to what it's currently using and just kind of see how that works. We go into, again, I chose sale date as my field. And I can say, okay, I'm interested in the age of the thing, and the age is determined based on either a fixed date and time, or I can update it pretty quickly to the current date. Where are we? It's July the
10th.
So we want to go to July 10. So now it's going to think about it for a second. It's going to update the histogram. Some of these properties, they haven't been sold in 107 years. But we don't want those weirdo properties, we don't want that controlling the color on our map. We want to treat it for what it is. It's a weird value. It's way out there. Now you get to decide how weird. 80 years weird? 56 years? What I'm doing is I'm saying to the software, don't use this darkest red color until they hit 50 years old. And now the map has changed, and I can start to see some of those 50-year-old properties on the map, can't I? This one last sold in 1955. Does that make sense? That's why we like these time styles. They let you work with what you're really interested in, which is often age. Another aspect of when is, I didn't really think about this till Jeremy pointed it out, is GPS tracks. This is Kelly Hutchins on the JavaScript team. She took a hike around Mount St. Helens near her and brought back all this data and information about it so we can kind of see the trail and we can see the track points and we can play the track points from where the car was parked. And in the legend, there's not much to the track points, right? It's just here we go across the thing. If we start to combine time with a style called counts and amounts color, and we're going to map elevation here. Okay, so when we map the elevation, suddenly this time-based animation takes on meaning. We can see Kelly getting higher and higher up the slope into the 3,000 meter range, and then right here, a descent. This is my favorite part of and then the ascent. And it's the worst part when you have to descend and you look and you're like, oh no. So there better be a good view. She told me there is a good view there. And then coming back around the loop, we're starting to descend again and head back to the car. So we like that aspect, but it turns out you can also do other things like, let's take this dark gray. You can also start to look at things like slope. So the change in elevation over time, I believe, Jeremy, didn't you recommend I put this in? Yeah. What is going on there? Oh, it's this field. You recommended I actually calculate the change in slope as a field so that we could map it. And so it's just a measurement from one place to another, right? And of that slope field, now we're able to kind of show the GPX over time, and you can more clearly see, at times we were losing a lot of elevation drop as we get down into this valley, and then suddenly it turns and we go back up. Another way to use time.
That, can you go back to your slide there, Jim?
Yeah.
No, the slide, sorry.
Oh, the slide. Yep.
That one, yeah.
Oh, here's the equation.
So, yeah, there is, GPS files don't come with slope on change, but you can use Arcade to calculate that slope or calculate distance traveled or elevation change by using the feature set capabilities of Arcade to then look at the previous one for each feature and see how it did change. And that's how Jim made all those cool maps.
And so you can tell we're kind of drifting into measurements of things. Common measures, they're represented as numbers often, but counts, and totals, percents, rates, averages, medians, and ratios. And there's various styles that take advantage of that. Here's one that John Grayson in our application prototype lab brought together. It's a fun app called Snowbirds and Snowfall. And the story is that people are called snowbirds because they move south to Arizona, California, Florida, other southern states to get away from the snow. And so we thought that we should have an application that shows that. And if you look carefully, you'll see a legend about the snowbirds. They're represented as the green dots. And the dots are based on the quantity of snowbirds. You see a lot of them around Phoenix and Southern California. And the color is based on the percent of the population who are snowbirds, 65 and older. So it's a clever use of color and size to indicate, look, people over 65 are everywhere, but these are the ones who either have the means or the will or the desire to get out of the snow every year. It's a clever use. I've got a couple examples to just kind of rip through, so I'm going to, I did it wrong, Jeremy, this PowerPoint. I love PowerPoint. I love me some PowerPoint.
Is it the PowerPoint or is it the person that's driving it?
Yeah, you're right. A good carpenter doesn't blame his PowerPoint. There we go. We'll edit all that out in post. Okay, so here we go. Here's an example, power plants by megawatt production. And this is a nice map just showing something very, very simple. Uses an expression to figure out what the predominant source of power is in each state. And this was in the days before Jeremy's team put this capability in as just a style. Before there was a map style, there was this code. You had to go find Jeremy or Christian at Guinness and ask them, hey, can I have the predominance code? Now they put it on GitHub, so you can just grab it and customize and make your own map style, make your own version of predominance. Go grab this, make your own version. And that's was exciting for me because once I could make this style, I thought, oh, well, I want to symbolize this two ways. I want to symbolize, this was the first map I made, but I started to notice that some people really like to see their states filled in. So this is kind of what I call a double reinforced map. The state color reflects the color used here. The predominant, as you might expect in Washington, the predominant type of hydro or power production is hydro. And down in Texas, the predominant is natural gas. Missouri, it's coal, right? And so the background color is reinforcing the foreground color. Just a quick little style that you can try. I had this conversation with an insurance agency recently when they were mapping all their customers. And they said, yeah, I'm having this little orange thing appear in the lower left corner. I said, well, how many customers do you have? They said 12 million. I was like, well, can we talk? Why are we trying to draw 12 million things in a browser?
It's not going to work.
He says it's not going to work. That's a technical answer. I'm saying it's not going to work because what are you trying to communicate by drawing 12 million of anything? It's not going to work. You have more things to draw than you have pixels on the screen. It's not going to work conceptually, technically. It's just not a good idea. So it's just a reminder that there's this powerful thing called a filter. When you find yourself mapping stuff and it's just not got, or it just has too many things, a strategy I often employ is to try to look through the attributes and find some angle, some excuse to filter stuff out, like pay method. So if we look at the pay methods available, they have American Express, and they have Discover, MasterCard. I don't know what MX is. Let's do Discover card. And we apply the filter, and suddenly we have less data to draw, and we have the orange thing went away, and now I'm drawing all the data. I'm still not there yet. This is showing the ratio of price to cost, also known as what? Margin? Anybody in business like to talk about margin? Yes, it's the lifeblood that pays salaries and causes reinvestment, and et cetera, and pays for your GIS department. So we need to have margin. So this map is showing you, of all sales, everything in green was profitable. Okay, that is a very reassuring map for a CEO to see. But perhaps what they want to see is not only that, but they also may want to see, just focus in on where price is less than cost, also known as unprofitable. And right now it's going to display features in the layer that match all of the following expressions. So it has to be Discover card and it has to be unprofitable. So this is now the map of unprofitable Discover card purchases. We'll often use this kind of interaction before we go build a custom app. We'll just sit with the data expert and whoever's complaining about, I can't draw everything I want. Our inclination as people is to throw all the data in and put a bunch of filters across the top and let people just explore. That is totally valid. But oftentimes you can use this type of map stuff, this type of interaction to kind of focus in on what are the 5 things the boss needs to see? What are the 5 reports we need to have? This is the unprofitable Discover card purchases map. That's a thing, and it's now a map style. You can just call this. You can save it as a layer if it's the layer you own and work with it from there. So this often will relieve the need to try to draw 12 million of anything. I think this is in the same category. We map how much. These are collisions in Los Angeles. Anyone driven in Los Angeles lately? Okay, what I did to create this map, I took the open data source, these LA collisions, these black dots, and I put them on top of the street center lines, also from open data. And then I ran an analysis using proximity and summarize. I think it was summarize nearby, to summarize all the accidents on every road segment. You can imagine what I get out of it. I get a map like this, where the thickness of the street is based on how many accidents occurred on that street, right? Just a raw count of points. But I was kind of interested in more of a map like this. This is the map I want to show the mayor or the head of traffic safety. Which streets are the problem? The ones in red. We didn't talk beforehand, did we? Right, it just communicates. And that's what we try to leverage, both with size and with color. In this case, what it looks like, if we open this up, the expression I used was very simple. Go get me the count of accident points in this line segment and divide that by the length of the line segment in miles. So I have accidents per mile. Is this a perfect measurement to use? No, but it is useful. If you have some tiny little line segment that is literally 50 feet long in your data set, you're going to have something weird come out of that. So just keep an eye out for that. But overall, this is a good way to go to say, I have 557 collisions per mile of road. I think if I were to go before a CEO or a director of traffic or anybody important, I'd probably smooth this out and just say 600, drop this in. You know, I might leave this at the average. You know, that's why we put the histogram there, so you have an anchor point for your map, a talking point for your map. And the 600 might give the director of traffic a PowerPoint bullet to say, our goal is to address all the streets which are having 600 accidents per mile per year and get them down, something like that. Jeremy, this is one of my favorite parts of this section, so. Okay, let's talk about reality. How we use data to represent reality. We then analyze that data in GIS and other pieces of software, and we create maps, charts, and applications that deliver a user experience. And we want to communicate something, and yet, even though we have the best data available at the time, like the image on the left, people still see what they want to see in the data sometimes, right? In this case, what do you see on the left? The man in the moon, or a man on Mars?
Moon. Mars. I don't know.
I think it was Mars. And then they flew back a few years later with a better sensor, and yeah, it turns out it's not a mask, it's just a hill. The point is, people will use their own reference point and interpret what they want. For another example, these are thermometers measuring body temperature. If I say 98.6, just if I say 98.6, y'all kind of know what I mean, even though we've never talked about it ahead of time. That's because we have a shared understanding of that number. That number is based in science. It has a basis. It is a basis of comparison. So that if I were to tell you the person in that seat in this auditorium has a 103-degree fever, and I put it on a map, you kind of want to make sure that map clearly shows that seat in red. Doesn't get buried in some classification technique that buries the fact that this person right here has a 103-degree fever, and everybody spreads out from around them. So the reason this is relevant is, don't assume everybody in the lower left corner, or sorry, the lower right corner, don't assume the C-level people, the gatekeepers, or management, or the workers, or the public understand your data. They don't know what's normal. I don't know how many accidents in Los Angeles is normal. 600 per mile in a year? That sounds like a lot to me. But I don't know. They don't know either. You can be the person who knows and shows it to them. What is your map's basis for comparison? Are you actively involved in that choice, or are you choosing a default setting, hitting it, and then hitting publish? Right? Because that latter pattern just won't work. And we all see it. You'll recognize that pattern is at work when you see a map where you don't understand what classification was. Oh, sorry, I'll leave this here. Go ahead. You'll recognize that a map isn't working when you put it up on screen and the people who matter and they understand the subject look at your map and they say nothing. And it could be because they don't understand it. It's not relevant to them. It's not using breaks or a comparison that is meaningful. And I'll illustrate this, and I did a blog about this recently where I took this data on low birth weight percentages. Again, the Robert Wood Johnson County Health Rankings data. Low birth weight percentages. Keep your eye on that arrow. There are 2 counties that arrow splits just above it. And this is natural breaks with a nice blue color scheme. And those counties appear to be identical, correct? There's no difference in those 2 counties. And when you do equal interval, again, there's no difference in those 2 counties according to this map. When it comes to low birth weight, no difference. Quantile, oh, there's a slight difference. What's quantile based on? We're going to chop the data up into 5 equal pieces just because we are. Doesn't matter what the outliers are. Doesn't matter if it's a nice, neat histogram with a normal bell curve. Don't care. We're going to chop it up. Standard deviation. Oh, we're back to there's no difference. These 2 are the same. And back to natural breaks. If we use an unclassed technique where we don't classify, we just let the data breathe, like all the examples I've been showing earlier, where we set, this map says at 10%, everybody gets a dark blue color, and at, what does it say? 6.2. Everybody gets a yellow color. Now suddenly we see there is a difference. But you know what's interesting? Our choice of color palette here goes from yellow to blue in a continuous fashion. As soon as you make a diverging color palette anchored around the national average, 8.1%, turns out one county is below the national average and one is above. Why would this possibly matter? Well, for one thing, now we have a reference point. If as a nation we'd like low birth weight to become less of a problem, now we know every county in purple is struggling with this at a rate greater than quote unquote normal. I'm choosing to use the US average as my 98.6. I'm open to suggestions on anything other. The United Nations has the Sustainable Development Goals as a way to set a bar. This is our goal. Now we can measure ourselves. Where are we against that bar? I recommend you try this. Be gentle with it. Sometimes people are scared when they see new things. I always recommend give people the map they're used to or that they asked for, but also give them one better that seems to reveal something more. We also want to show how much intensity in the data is happening. I'm going to do these rapid fire to make sure I leave time, for Jeremy to show you the other things that he's got on his plate. And here we go. So the first example, this is a data set. This is a data set of population growth from 2016 to 21 predicted by Esri. And again, just driving home the fact that your color choice and your breakpoints have a big thing to say about this. Compare this map to this map. They're both about population growth, but it's kind of deceptive. It turns out in every data set of population growth, some areas actually decline in population. And by using color to show in red areas that are losing population, and in green, those that are gaining, it's a completely different story using that diverging color palette, right? It's the same data, reasonable set of breakpoints on this, but I cannot tell which zip codes, I think these are losing population because the classification itself says negative 1.5 to negative 0.27, negative 2.7 to positive 0.19. So it could be negative, could be positive. By putting that anchor right in the middle and using unclassed, you can kind of see this one is right at 0%. This one's slightly below, okay? It's just that granularity. You can always go back and classify later. For example, if there is going to be a policy set that we're going to invest in those communities that meet this threshold, well then be very clear about where that threshold is. But sometimes it's useful to see how sensitive is that threshold. Okay, and then the other quick example, Atascadero, California water usage, they tracked in their data set usage of water in thousands of gallons from 2013 in this column to 2014. So for every parcel, we have a number, and by showing the percent change, parcels in blue increase their usage of water, hence the blue color, and parcels in brown decreased their usage of water of up to 25%. Why 25? Because at the time, the governor said the goal is every community to drop 25% their consumption of water. So that seemed like a map that would now engage the governor's conversation about that topic. Simple choice, I could have used any other classification technique, but that's the one that seemed to cause the discussion. And just a quick example here with sometimes the 3D buildings themselves can be your symbols so that people can kind of identify which are the buildings that are scoring very well on the energy score. So I think I want to pause there because I know Jeremy's dying to show you.
Over number 3.
Over to number 3.
Just to pick up on a couple things that Jim just talked about there. This is Zillow historical price to income ratio. You know, you shouldn't buy a house more than 3 times your salary in terms of mortgage, and just remembering that number. Everybody remembers that number 3 times. Well, let's look at what this map is. Let's take a look at it for current day. So March of 2019. And unfortunately, it goes from 1 to 9.7 today. But a good technique to sort of like tease some of this out is just like Jim said, let's set the number to something important. So 3 times is what we used to hear about in the past. And let's make that the smallest size. And we'll go ahead and make the biggest multiplier 9. So 3 to 9. So you're really emphasizing anything that's above that small circle is just getting more and more and more away from that traditional way of thinking. You can look at it even, I won't drill too much into this map, but I use that same technique, 3 to 9, but then let's show what's the difference from 25 years ago. Yellow centered on it's about the same. Red means it's a 2 times change since then. So this is a map we like to show a lot of our new employees at Esri and really depress them as they're starting off their young careers. Just kidding. To follow on to that count and rate, here's a data set that Jim clued me on. Let me find the, where's the data? Okay. No health insurance. Too many variables. Where's the no? There we go. I want to look at no insurance. So who doesn't have insurance in this area? And let's go ahead and add also what's the percent insured? And we'll flip those variables around. So we're going to have the count of no insurance be as the size axis. We're going to have the percent uninsured be on the color axis. So pretty interesting. Not the best base map. Maybe look at it. The best colors for that base map. Maybe look at it above and below. So what you really want to see is the areas that are in this case very high percentage. Well, what's the magnitude difference? Because like Jim said out in, again, a previous session out in eastern San Diego, there's not as many people. Maybe it's not as acute. You can also apply the same technique in 3D as well. So here's that same data set, but in 3D. So we're looking at those same places, but we're extruding the height based on the count of the uninsured, and then we're coloring it by that percent uninsured. And 3D is interesting. 3D is more complicated to navigate, so you want to definitely do these bookmarks at the bottom or slides. 3D extruded cylinders are harder to understand because you can't really represent that in the legend. So I like to create another column and just take the top 2 or 3 values and label them, put some text in, and then label based on that column. So that's actually the number, 3296 without insurance here. So all pretty cool stuff. We just got a couple minutes left, but I'd like to show the new map viewer, if anybody's interested. So working on the new map viewer, having it come out this fall. It'll be released progressively into next year before we finally reach full equivalency with the current map viewer and the current map viewer go away. So you'll be able to use both of these at the same time. Maps will be interchangeable, they'll work, but we're pretty excited to show you what's coming. Building on what Jim talked about, we want to make it quick to try things out. We're doing that same thing in the new map viewer. So I've got this data set of zip codes. It's about, how many zip codes are in the US, Jim? Like 36,000?
Yeah, a lot.
A lot of zip codes.
You're in the ballpark.
Let's get that thing loaded here. And just actually on that, you couldn't load actually and get this kind of performance in the current map viewer for all 36,000 zip code polygons. But let's open up the layer details. And let's do some mapping here. So I'm going to do percent of households living below the poverty line. We'll see that map update pretty quickly. And also got size. All the other styles will be there. But let's drill in here and play a little bit with this slider. So just like with the current map viewer, you have control over how color is applied to it, and see the smooth level of performance that we're getting there. Pretty excited about that. Next thing is really on the color ramps itself. So in the current map viewer, you guys probably remember, right? If you want to change the current color ramp, you click the symbol button, a modal dialog pops up. You click over to the colors tab, you scroll, you pick a ramp, you click OK, the dialog goes away, the map redraws. It's not a good color. Let's do it again. And you're only going to do that a couple times where you say, forget it. I'm not going to touch this anymore. I've lost interest. Well, now in the new map viewer, it's as easily as just clicking on each one of these guys to get a look at all of those ramps. Which one looks best? In addition to that, we've also organized the ramps. So we have ramps best for light backgrounds, best for dark backgrounds, bright ramps, colorblind friendly ramps. So in the current one, we just had a big smorgasbord of 30 or 40 ramps. Most of them are colorblind friendly, but you don't know how to figure that out. In the new one, we have added this structure, and then we're able to engage with some of the great cartographers at Esri to help build us some specific ramps. Lastly, in addition, we want to make it a simple, smooth experience when authoring your layer filter. So same thing today in the current map viewer. You open up that filter dialog, you put some values in like Jim did earlier, you press OK. Was that what I meant? I'm not sure. Okay, I'm going to open it back up again, I'm going to do it again. So we want to bring that same fast, instantaneous view to the new map viewer. So now watch me just pick on these fields here as I'm interactively defining my filter on these states. And you'll see the gray is still there because those are your features that are not in the filter. The features that have full fidelity are the ones that are in your filter. So this gives you, at author time of the filter, an idea of what's in, what's out. Is my filter actually capturing what I want it to capture, and so on. And this goes to not just things like picking fields, but let's do below the poverty line, and we'll switch to is at least. And we have that histogram. Let's set this back to 30. Got that really nice histogram, and same thing. See this kind of smooth interaction that I have to help me pick that filter I want. I press save. Now the filter's applied, and I've got it in my map. Just indulge me for just one more minute to show you one other example. I'm going to go to the Living Atlas and query for the ACS layers and pick this population data set. And turn off the zip codes. Let's zoom in to Southern California so we get the tracks to come on. Now the astute people in the audience probably noticed that when I clicked that feature layer that had 3 sub-layers, it didn't get added as 3 individual layers. It got added as one group layer.
Ooh, slick.
Group layers, anyone? I'll select the track, come over here, and let's try one of these new styles here. Let's do count of people over 65 and over, and let's do
18.
Count of people less than 18 years.
Yeah.
Here we go. We've got this new dot density map. Okay, pretty cool. Let's switch the base map to something like that, and go back in and look at the dot density options. Same kind of quick trial. Pick through these ramps, see the dots change, find the one you want, and go with it. We have automatically picked a dot style. That's what smart mapping does, but you can control. Do you want 1 dot per value, or do you want something less? You pick the size, or you pick the number that makes sense, that makes the best visual for your data. And then, of course, by default, it's vary by scale. So as I zoom in, I'm going to turn on the legend. So it's 1 to 32 here. Zoom in one more time, it's 1 to 16. And you can kind of get that idea. Yeah, one last thing I just want to show really fast is base maps, bookmarks. LA. Bookmarks are there with a thumbnail. And we'll have multiple thumbnails there. So look for this at the beginning of October. It'll be running with the current map viewer. It won't have full support for everything, but the things that you author in here will work. I'll go into a deeper dive tomorrow on the ArcGIS Online Road Ahead if you're interested at 8:30. Thank you.
That's really cool, Jeremy.
And then that's it. We're done.
Yeah, we have some resources. If you are interested in getting this PowerPoint with all these links and resources quickly, just drop a card off with us up here. Thank you for coming. We'll stick around for questions. And I want to thank you all. Now's the time to go visit the ArcGIS Online Island to talk about that new map viewer and exchange ideas.
So you can get one-on-one demos with people on the island if you're interested.
Because we are interested in the map styles. We're interested in the map styles that you need, in addition to the things we're already dreaming up. Thank you for coming. And don't forget to review this and the feedback if there's good feedback. This is the way to get it to us so that we get to continue doing stuff like this. Thank you.